Welcome to CCENT. This is the ICND 1, Part 5. So in this section, we're going to go and take a look at configuration registers. We're going to use the shortcut keys, explore history commands, and start moving into routing. Got a lot to cover. Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on PC4 for a minute. And what you'll notice on PC4 is there is no configuration so far. So what I did is I plugged in a console cable, also known as a rollover. So pins 1 through 8 are rolled over on the other side, 8 to 1. And what I did is I plugged it into the serial port on the PC and in the console port of the router. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the PC. I'm going to click on terminal. And notice here we have this configuration, 9600 8 none 1 none. You want to know that is a classic setup. It's part of the Cisco objectives for the exam as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And notice we are in fact in router 1 here with the host name of New York router. So let's go ahead and click on the router itself. There we go. And what we're going to do, get the right one up here, okay, is we're going to turn off the physical router and we're going to run in a break sequence, a Control-Shift-6C, to go ahead and go into what's called RAMON. Not ramen noodle, RAMON. Raw monitor. So here we go. We're going to turn it off. Now watch the terminal side. Turn it back on. We see it's decompressing. Control-Shift-6C. And now we're in RAMON. Hit the question mark. You'll notice there is not a lot of different options here. Not a lot of boot options. Because what it's really used for is when things go bad, how do we fix it? One of the things I want to focus on right now is confrag. What confrag allows me to do is change the configuration register. In other words, when this thing boots up, how does it boot? The two I want to talk about is 2102, which is how it normally boots, where it looks for the startup configuration, and 2142, which allows it to ignore the startup configuration. So think about it. I just picked up this eBay router. Okay, picked it up. And I plug it in, and I use a console cable to plug into it, and they left a privilege mode password on there. I need a way to be able to reset that so I can get in and take a look at what's going on. Otherwise, it's pretty much worthless to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in confrag, and we're going to change the register to OX2142. So that should tell me that when it boots up, ignore the startup config. Treat it like it has no startup config. Enter. Now I'm going to type in reset. Remember, when you're in the router's iOS, it's reload. When we're in RAMON, it's reset. Enter. And notice it's decompressing like you expect. Right? Those pound signs represent decompressing. But look at that. It's treating it as if it's a brand new setup, isn't it? It wants me to configure in configuration dialog, meaning it doesn't acknowledge that it has a startup configuration right now. I'm going to say no. And now notice I can go right to privilege mode. There's no password set because there was no startup configuration in the mind of the iOS because we changed the register. Now, to verify this, we can type in show version. A bunch of good information. But what I'm interested in is the bottom where it says configuration registers at OX2142. Now, a mistake I think a lot of people make when they first start doing this is they say, okay, great, let's copy this running config to the startup config. Because now I can copy these settings, and when next time I reboot it normally, I can get into the iOS because there's no password. But think about it. Let's say, for example, there were settings in there you wanted to take a look at. So maybe it wasn't the eBay device you bought, but maybe it was one of your own routers in your company. If you copy the running to the startup, it will completely wipe out your startup configuration. So what's better to do, in my opinion, is do a copy startup config that's being ignored currently to running config. Now when we do a show run, we see all the information was still retained. However, notice the enable secret. However, I'm already in privilege mode. So I can simply go to global configuration mode, do a no enable secret, and now we have our existing configuration and the password's removed. So now I could just kick it back over. Now I could say, okay, copy my running configuration to my startup config. Well, another thing I want to do is, I could have done this before I did this. Wow, that's not weird. Is I want to change my configuration register so it comes up in normal boot. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into global configuration mode. Type in config register OX21, now 42, but back to 02. I can save it. Now, if this works the way it's supposed to, when I reload it, I should show right back into my normal boot up, and I should have no secret password. All right, here we go. It's decompressing. Let's see if it finds a startup configuration this time. Aha, look at all that. Up, 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 up. That lets me know that it is reading correctly from the startup configuration. And when I type enable, I'm now in privilege mode. Very, very important thing to learn. So I'm going to wipe these couple options out. Let's take a look at a couple commands here. I'm going to type a sentence. This is my sentence. And if you take a look on the side here, we have a couple commands. We can do things like Control B. Let's be backspace. Control F goes forward. Control A at the beginning of the line. Control E to the end of the line. So what's interesting there is it almost feels like you're working in Excel, doesn't it? So the question is, why bother with that when I can use my keyboard, right? Why bother? Well, the reason why is because in some terminals, your keys might not work that way. You might not be able to use your up and down, left and rights. But with these control keys, they'll work. They're a backup. Another thing you can do is Control P, and notice here it gives me my previous commands. Control N does my next commands. If you're interested about the history of commands you ran, you can type in show history. By default, it does 10 commands, it remembers. Okay. If you want to change the size of that, we're going to go into global configuration mode. I think. Let me see here. I'm like, I think. No, we're going to go where I thought we'd go. You can type in terminal history size, question mark, and notice you have 0256. So you can change that buffer size as you please. So we're going to go ahead and clear that out. And wipe these guys out over here. Nope, not that guy. These guys. And what we want to do now is put us in a position where we can start using TFTP. Remember, that's the Trivial File Transfer Protocol. So I'm going to go ahead and close this guy out. And notice that our routers are red, right? The FA00 and 01. So let's take a look and see what happened there. Let's do a show IP interface brief. And we'll see that we are down. So I should simply be able to come in here to global configuration mode. Interface fast Ethernet 00. No shutdown. And interface fast Ethernet 01. No shutdown. And we should be in better shape. And we're now up, and verified. So let's go and set ourselves up for the Trivial FTP. I'm going to come down here to the bottom where it says End Devices, and we're going to add a server, like so. And we'll give it the IP address of 192.168. We'll make it 1.10. Give it a default gateway. And we'll label it just so we remember later. 192.168.1.10. And let's connect it up. Okay. Now, on this server, in this program, we can click on the server. And what we're going to do now is click on Config. We're going to go down to where it says TFTP. And notice that the service is turned on. And these right here are the different iOSs we have to work with. So let's do a simple copy. See how we are on time. I'm trying to keep these under 15 minutes, okay? So I'm going to go over here to the switch. Okay, so when we get back, we're going to go ahead and play around with the transfer of the iOS back and forth with TFTP. I'll see you then.